Yes, we have a surprise cameo by Perk. Okay, I'm gonna talk about this because, well, first of all, yes, I'm wearing my little Walter shirt as I talk about this because property rights and intellectual rights for black artists very important. One thing I learned from him. What do you say, Perk? You're gonna help me read it? Luke Bryan is tripping. Here's what he said. Luke Bryan's assertion Luke Bryan's assertion that Beyoncé needed to fully immerse herself in the country music community to gain acceptance or be nominated for a CMA award overlooks a critical reality about the genre's history, and its exclusionary nature. It isn't merely a question of showing up to events, high-fiving people, this is what he said, and participating in industry culture. The truth is, black artists, especially black women, have historically been excluded from the central narrative of country music despite their significant contributions to the genre's origin. Beyoncé, by virtue of her identity as a black pop star, faces barriers that are far deeper and systemic than what Luke Bryan acknowledges. The idea of country music as a family is romantic, but it's a selective family historically centered around white Southern culture. For decades, country music has been characterized by who it excludes as much as by who it includes. Black artists have often been denied entry or relegated to the periphery, with the genre portrayed as the embodiment of rural white American life. This gatekeeping has meant that Beyoncé, despite her evident talent and Southern roots, has never been truly welcomed into the fold. She is more akin to a distant or forgotten neighbor, someone with ties to the community but denied the familial embrace due to racial prejudice. Beyoncé's experience with country music is emblematic of the genre's broader issues with race. When she performed Daddy Lessons at the 2016 CMA Awards with the Chicks, the backlash from the audience highlighted how the country music community reacted to a black woman stepping into their space. The cold reception, along with racist comments from both the audience and viewers, underscored how deeply ingrained the racial barriers are in the industry. Despite Beyoncé's efforts to connect with the genre and her collaboration with a beloved country act, she was still treated as an outsider. Luke Bryan's suggestion that she needed to do more misses the point that her exclusion was not due to a lack of effort or interest on her part, but because of systemic bias. Furthermore, the CMA Awards and similar institutions have long played a role in defining who is and isn't considered country. These organizations often act as gatekeepers, favoring artists who fit a narrow definition of country music, one that has historically catered to white audiences and performers. Beyoncé, even as one of the world's most influential musicians, was never going to be readily embraced by these institutions simply by showing up. The rejection of her album for nominations was not about her unwillingness to participate in country culture, but about her identity not fitting the traditional image of a country star that these bodies have propagated for decades. Country music is deeply tied to its cultural roots, which are often aligned with conservative values and a sense of exclusivity regarding who belongs. Luke Bryan's comments imply that by simply attending award shows or mingling with Nashville insiders could have garnered Beyoncé acceptance. However, the barriers she faced are far more entrenched. It's not about showing up, but about changing the perception of who can authentically perform and be a part of country music. Beyoncé, as a black woman, represents a challenge to these traditional views, and her mere presence in the genre threatens an established norms that the gatekeepers aim to uphold. Moreover, Beyoncé's connection to country music is rooted in her heritage. Her Texas upbringing and her cultural background should be enough to validate her as a legitimate country artist, but the industry's reluctance to accept her speaks volumes about its racial exclusivity. Luke Bryan seems to dismiss this history and the significance of Black influence on country music, which goes back to the genre's very foundations. Black musicians were instrumental in the early development of country music, yet they have been largely written out of its mainstream narrative. Beyonce's attempt to reassert this connection through Cowboy Carter should be seen as reclaiming a rightful place rather than seeking an invitation to a foreign community. Luke Bryan's perspective also ignores political dimensions of Beyonce's country music endeavors. For a Black artist, performing country music is not just an artistic choice, it's a political statement against historical erasure and marginalization within the genre. Beyonce's Cowboy Carter challenges the notion that country music is exclusively the domain of white performers. Her lyrics address the very rejection she faces, calling out the hypocrisy and doubting her authenticity while ignoring the genre's deep Black roots. By dismissing these aspects, Bryan reduces Beyonce's work to a mere attempt to fit in, ignoring the broader cultural and racial dynamics at play. Country music's portrayal as a family also overlooks the systemic barriers to entry for Black artists. Luke Bryan speaks from a position of privilege within the industry, a two-time CMA Entertainer of the Year who has never faced the kind of obstacles that Black artists encounter. It's easy for him to suggest that Beyonce should have just integrated herself into the community when he's never had to fight for acceptance on racial grounds. The industry has always been welcoming to artists like Bryan, while Black artists have been forced to work twice as hard for even a fraction of that acceptance, often without success. The lack of nominations for Beyonce's album can't simply be chalked up to her not being country enough. Her music pays homage to Southern traditions she grew up with, but it also incorporates elements that reflect her identity as a Black woman in America. This intersection of influences is exactly what makes her contribution to country music so significant. By ignoring her efforts and focusing on her supposed lack of community involvement, Luke Bryan's comments reveal a failure to understand the broader systemic issues of exclusion and bias within country music. Ultimately, Luke Bryan's stance minimizes the real struggles Black artists face in country music, not about Beyonce not wanting to be a part of the family. It's about the family not wanting her. Country music, as it has been presented by the Nashville establishment, is a gate-kept space that has systemically excluded Black artists despite their foundational contributions to the genre. Beyonce was not rejected because she didn't embrace country culture. She was rejected because country culture, as defined by its gatekeepers, has yet to fully embrace artists like her.